All right, so boom. I just came back from the funeral, bearing the unknown Adonis, and for one, initially, I don't even know if I wanted to record this video, but I felt it on my spirit. I would like to thank everybody who sent DMs, messages in the comment sections. Some made videos. I saw a couple on TikTok, individuals expressing their condolences. And just say thank you. Even those who reached out to me personally, I appreciate all of you immensely. I know I haven't gotten back to the bulk share of the messages. It's just been a whirlwind of emotions the past couple of weeks, just trying to process everything. And earlier today, pretty much had a celebration of life of my best friend, my brother, the unknown Adonis, and I was, given the privilege of being able to speak. In fact, the unchiseled Adonis had the privilege to speak as well. And I'm gonna play it for you in a little bit, but I don't know if I truly did him justice per se. In a sense, like I feel uneasy about it because there was so much more I could have said, but I pivoted in the midst of beginning the process of the speech because this I don't want to make it about me. I don't like the process of writing like this. I wrote this out previously for when I got ready to go. I should say prior to the funeral, to somewhat eulogize, if that's a word, his life and our relationship. But it felt uncomfortable, reading, and furthermore, it took to a point where it would have gotten very morbid. So I didn't want to shift the tone of the celebration of his life. So I guess today, per se, or I should say right now, I can have an opportunity to at least get a bit more deeper into our relationship, our friendship, and our brotherhood throughout the years. But this is what I ultimately had to say at the funeral.
One word I'm going to leave you with, it's time. It's the most important currency we have, so use it wisely. Ecclesiastes 3 talks about time. Make time for family, make time for friends. Look around this room to the person to the side of you, to in front of you, behind you. Each and every one of us, we're going to be here. So use your time wisely. One of our last moments that we had a conversation, it was like, he had a moment while I was driving in the car, and I was just saying, you gotta get right. And he was looking at me like, Jude, you gotta get right. And I'm sitting there like, we had so many thoughts and dreams of next year, and now it's time. I wish I had more time. So use your time wisely. It's my last word. May God bless you all. And to my brother.
Good morning. Good morning. God be with everybody here. For one, me and Dave talked about today for years, what it would look like. And he truly would be blown away by the love in the room right now. I see familiar faces, some people who we haven't seen in years, and he brought us all together here. So if you could just give him a round of applause so he could hear you from up above. You could just give him a round of applause. All right. Okay, I'll try to send my brother off the best way I can. So I'm grateful for the Joseph family for giving me this opportunity to speak, here to celebrate the gift that Dave gave us all. Dave was a unique human being. Uh, he was the kind of person who you could never forget because he would do things that was oh so memorable. In this very sanctuary, we have so many memories together. I remember singing in junior choir. We would do everything we can to just try to see that if we could escape from here to go inside the auditorium and wrestle on the stage on that wretched carpet that they used to have back there. Um, I'll never forget where I helped him get a job. And for whatever reason, Dave was very quirky. So he would answer yes and no questions with negative or positive for whatever reason. But it's how he, made everybody laugh. Roger, when you got the dog for Dave, and he told me he got a dog. And he said, this is Chopper. Chopper barked at me. I barked back at Chopper. He said, Chopper said hello. I said, what did I say? And he said, I don't know. I don't speak dog. But that was the type of person that Dave was. He always can make you laugh. He was more than just my best friend. He was my brother. And I know a lot of you who saw the body when the casket was open were probably asking, why the purple suit? And growing up, we were big fans of the Boondocks. And one of his favorite characters was a pimp named Slickback. So I figured it's only apropos he gets his opportunity to wear the purple suit he always said he wanted. I know he's probably shooting a shot at some angels right now, getting turned down as we speak. But it's what he would have wanted. Dave and I spoke maybe every day for the last 17 years. If social media was around in 98 when we were 4, we probably would have spoke every day for the last 28 years. But we had so many memories together. I recall when he was going through high school, or I should say if we were to go back to when Dan passed in 2003, I can close my eyes here, I could vividly see it. We got done singing with junior choir. We walked for the viewing. Dave was sitting right here. I hugged him for about 3 minutes. I looked at Dan. It was the only time I ever had a outer body experience, and I felt Dan speak to me to say, be the best brother I can be, to take the spot that he had. I can only hope I did a good job. And we went to go visit Dan in 2020 for the first time in 17 years. And we had a moment there. I won't speak on what the conversation that we had there, but we spoke so much about the future. And we made a promise to each other that when the time comes and I have children, he has children, we'd be able to tell them stories about Dan. And now I have the privilege, when the time comes for me, I'll be able to tell my children stories about Dave. And in high school, whenever he was going through trial and tribulation, I would always tell him, you know, what would Dan do? We'd always say, what would Dan do? Whenever we had something that came across us, what would Dan do? Moving forward, I'll say, what would Dave do? You know? And he always talked highly about how he wanted an opportunity, if he had one more chance, to wrestle with Dan, just to see who's the strongest. I guess now he has that opportunity. And I thank all of you for being here, because it truly does mean a lot. Because Dave, if you love Dave, he felt the love. But if Dave loved you, you knew. You knew. So as my brother said, cherish the time that you have with your friends. I was with him every step of the way. There was no words that was left unsaid between myself and him. I know how he felt about me. He knew how I felt about him. And I just wish that we could have one more conversation. But I carry him with me everywhere I go for the remainder of my days. And you're not dead until you're forgotten. And the memories that we have will carry on Dave's legacy forever. And I'm so blessed to have been in a generation now where we have the benefit of having video, audio. Those videos and audio of hearing his voice, I'll never forget that voice for as long as I live, and neither will you as well. So I thank all of you for being here and celebrating his life with us, because although we're mourning, it hurts. The beauty of the pain that you feel when somebody passes is just how deeply you love them. So cherish the memories that you have with my brother Dave, and it's never goodbye, it's just see you later. So run up Snake Way like we always talked about. Dan is waiting for you. And I could have that last wrestling match in the sky. I'll see you soon, brother. Thank you.
Now, primarily, one of the reasons why I feel like maybe I didn't do him as much justice was I really don't think people understand the severity of how bad, you know, the sickness just so happened to have been. And ultimately, in that particular moment, like it's over. Like it's what can we do, you know? And as it pertains to my relationship with him, like I need you to understand, like this isn't just best friend, brother, right? I can't tell you how many nights, mornings, afternoon, I prayed for God to take me. If there was a way right now that I can give my life up for him to be here without me, heartbeat. I've lived enough. I've legit lived enough. I can't tell you how many times I'd prayed, no matter how subscribers, money, the position in the family, taking care of folks, individuals who depended on me. Bro, if I can leave today to bring him back, I will. Legitimate. And in the moment, as I'm sitting there, I'm looking at it like, yo, given the feeling in the room, of course, it's a tough road to go down. Like, because over the course of the past 5 years, right? Because it got to stage 5, I want to say maybe 2.5, 3 years ago or so, to where the kidneys weren't operating at all, right? It was just primarily just straight up dialysis. If what the procedure just so happened to be, it was dialysis 3 times a week. And there were moments where I'll never forget in 2021, this was 4 years prior, where he had taken a bit of a sabbatical, for lack of a better term, from going to dialysis for about, at this point, about 2.5 weeks. Like he was trying to see if he could go the holistic route, but his body was already too far gone. And I'll never forget, the nurse called me into the room aside from him, like, yo, just want to inform you, like, this is a bad situation. Like, he has to go and get treatment and get dialysis. If he doesn't, he's probably not going to be able to live 2 weeks. And that shit hit me like a ton of bricks. It was the first time that I legitimately broke down crying since my final game playing in high school. Like, I was bawling, unconsolable. I held it in up until, I dropped him off back at the crib, and I lost it in the car. And then when I made it back to the crib, and one of my closest friends, he's actually pulling up to my crib within the next couple of hours. I saw him earlier at the funeral as well. We had concocted a plan where I believe the conversation happened with the nurse on a Wednesday or a Thursday. The ensuing Saturday, a couple of days later, we're going to pull up in the morning. I actually spoke to his father about this. I was going to pull up in the morning and essentially, like, damn near choke son out to bring him to the center to go and get dialysis. But to God be the glory, that morning on that Saturday, he actually sent me a message. I still have the text message on one of my older phones, where on that morning, he said he just felt, something on his spirit to go and get treatment. And throughout the entire process, the whole process, I was with him every step of the way. Like, we would go to the doctor, the chiropractor together 3 times per week for about the entirety of 2022 and a portion of 2023. There were many different moments in which, if he was being a little bit defiant regarding medication or going for appointments and stuff like that, his parents would call me. Like, there was on 3 different occasions, he actually wanted me to be appointed as the not primary point of contact, but I forget what the terminology would be. Is it like, not guardian, because he's not a child, but the like home attendant, something of that nature. And the only reason why I couldn't work was I didn't live close to him like I do now, right? And one of the biggest driving points of me moving, buying the house in the location that I live in now, was to be closer to him. And now that shit's gone. And I don't know how to explain that shit. And even in the midst of the, like, the character of who he was, right? Now, that was a portion of what I omitted in the midst of the speech. Like, I started out reading a little bit, and then I just felt like, man, I don't want to go down that, because it's going to get very dark really fast. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So you know what? I'll just pivot, look at more like the happy times. Like, for example, I just want to give you an idea to have an understanding of the character of the unknown Adonis, Dave Joseph. At this point, last year, 2024, his only source of income is disability, because you can't work, right? Unless he was doing something from home. But at this point, that was just a reality situation. It was just disability was his only form of income. He spent half of his monthly income to buy me a Nintendo Switch. I don't need a Nintendo Switch. But he felt it on his spirit to get me a Nintendo Switch, spending half of his disability for the month to get me a birthday gift, because he felt odd that he had one and I didn't. That's the character of this man. That's the character of this man. And throughout when I started social media, I mentioned in the previous video, he was one of the first 8 people who I sent the message to about, yo, would I be wilding if I was to go into stand-up comedy, and then ultimately pivoted into social media. He was one of the first individuals to ever comment on the channel. I actually went into, I was able to get access into his Gmail account, and I found passwords to be able to log into social medias and ultimately post, you know, the flyers for the funeral and everything. And lo and behold, the login information for Twitch was there. I was his #1 viewed channel on Twitch. This brother supported me through everything. And it hurts so much that I'm here and he's not. I can't wrap my mind around that. And grieving is a brutal process, right? Because ultimately there's no timeline on it. Like, do you ever get over something like that? There's a ton of different people who I've spoken to, just trying to get insight on how to navigate, you know, the emotions and moving forward. And really, you go through it at any small moment throughout the day. A memory, something that can remind you of your loved one, will pop up and immediately hits you like a Mack truck. Like, in 21st century problems, I can't tell you how many times I've just found myself, whether it be on IG, on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, on the shorts. I've come across a video, I've wanted to send it to him, but I can't. Literally, if I tried to send it to him, I'd be sending it to myself because I have his phone. It's a bizarre situation. I remember when this was maybe 2016 or so. Well, even before that, I remember when he first got his car, a 2002 Mercedes Coupe. And one of the first places that he came to was my house. And we would just sit up playing video games for hours. And there was one particular time in which we were leaving and taking the highway. I was going to JFK, to the airport, to go see somebody. He was on the way back home. We would race down Bell Parkway, driving at like maybe 67, maybe not so much racing, but we were cruising through Bell Parkway, blasting Mario Kart music, driving side by side, making the same sort of emotes and doing the same character voices of like Mario and DK and Wario. All these fond memories that we would do all of this stuff, right? Going to WWE shows, going to watch NXT, going to, well, we were supposed to go on a cruise, you know, next year, and ultimately I got to honor him by going on that cruise. The ECW Championship, literally right there on the ground at the bottom of the screen, like that. I bought that for him years prior. I'm gonna hang that up here, and when I go to Monday Night Raw this upcoming Monday, or I should say on the 5th in the new year, when I go to Monday Night Raw on the 5th in the new year, I'm going to take that championship, you know, as an homage to him. But he played such a large portion, you know, in my life. And in the midst of giving that speech, it's like, I can't make this about me. It's about him, you know, in the moment. And I'll close this out with this, and I apologize for rambling. You know, I'm just trying to process, you know, how all of this stuff is going. We went to the cemetery, right? And his brother, the unforgettable Adonis, as we've been able to come up with in the chat and the live stream. So shout out to the chat for holding it down with the name there. And in the cemetery, he's buried. He passed in 2003 on the 9th of August. He's buried a little bit to the left, and less than, I want to say 30 feet away, the unknown Adonis is buried on the right. And watching the casket go into the ground, it's surreal. I can't even put into words that feeling. It's like, yo, that's it. That's the final stop. That's it. But as I've always stated, death does not occur, you know, when an individual happens to be deceased. It occurs when that person's forgotten. And I will carry all of the memories, all of the moments with me for the remainder of my days. And I'll say this much: I'm not one to make a ton of guarantees or promises, but this is one I will take with me. 2026. It is my mission to get to that 1 million subscribers. And when I do, I know the exact place I'm going. Straight to that cemetery. I'm gonna sit in between both of my brothers, I may bring the unchiseled Adonis with me. And we're going to have a moment to celebrate there. Because I told him that when we get there, and it's a team effort, because he was there with me every step of the way, and he's still going to be with me every step of the way. When we get there, we're going to be able to celebrate together. And I'll be damned if I don't get that opportunity. So that's ultimately what my goal for 2026 just so happened to be. But I just wanted to take a moment right now, just further expand just the character of who the unknown Adonis just so happened to be. Because this brother, man, like he was going to be the best man at my wedding when the time comes, most likely be the godfather of my children. Like we spent so many years talking about what we wanted the future to look like. And I so desperately wanted them to be able to overcome kidney disease, kidney failure, and be able to go and get the transplant. And I don't know if I had mentioned it on previous videos before, but one of the biggest issues that we kept running into regarding the kidney transplant was because his blood pressure was so irregular and constantly being incredibly high. Medication and all the different sort of treatments trying to bring it back down level, it kept jumping high to where he couldn't end up onto the kidney list, right, for the transplant. And I felt very conflicted because I wanted to be able to leverage my platform to see if potentially we can go and get a transplant, because I unfortunately wasn't a match. And then at the same vein is the only way that you can try to expedite the process is if I was to donate to somebody else, and then somehow that would somewhat accelerate somebody being able to donate to him. But because he wasn't, leveled with the blood pressure, and then furthermore, there was a great period of time in which he wasn't really keen to the idea of going forth with the transplant. If I was to go and bring it to the platform and somebody was willing to go and donate, if he's unwilling, what's all this for? So I wrestled with that for years. And I even talked to him about it, like, hey man, maybe we could leverage a platform. Obviously, it's not a GoFundMe situation, because unless we're trying to buy something off the black market or something like that. But I'm like, fam, we can talk to the populace. The internet can be an amazing place. Sometimes it can be a terrible place, but sometimes it can be an amazing place. And we could leverage a platform to be able to get, somebody might be able to step forward who happens to be a match, who could go and get the transfer. It's like, nah, man, I don't want to have somebody else's organ, in my body. Not doing. And what sucked the most about this entire situation was 2025 was truly, as it pertains to treatment, bestie. The most consistent. Whether it had been medication and going to different sort of treatments, mentally, I think he was more optimistic this year than he ever was before. And I've had 3 unfortunate losses, this one being the biggest one, or I should say the most recent, is that my grandmother passed when I was in high school. I was 15 at the time, but I kind of knew the writing was on the wall. My aunt passed when I was 25, I believe. This was in 24. This is in the day after Christmas in 2018, and I was 24 at the time, but I knew the writing was on the wall at that point too. This one, although I spent since that day in 2021 when the nurses pulled me into the room and said, you got 2 weeks, I spent the bulk share of 4 years essentially just waiting on a phone call if that were to happen, and I had that in the back of my mind. With the progress that he was making this year, I just did not unprepared for that. And it makes me want, like, what more could I have done? What more could I have done? You think of all the moments, like, what else? Could I have maybe brought it to the platform? And if I brought it to the platform and tried to see if I can, find somebody out there in the ethos that would have been willing to give, would that ultimately shift his mindset and say, hey, you know what? I want to go forth with it? Because we were this close. In fact, myself and his father were I'm looking at it right now. Myself and his father were writing a fucking letter that we can send out maybe to the kidney, not kidney society, but the foundation, something of that nature, to where maybe that they can, accelerate the process, maybe get him on the list. But ultimately, if his blood pressure wasn't, stable and level, there's no scenario where they was gonna mess around and put him on there. The only way a transplant could happen if it was an emergency situation. And unfortunately for him, when I spoke to a couple of nurses, it wasn't that just yet. And it's fucking brutal. Like I'm just trying to process the whole thing. I have no idea. I have no idea how I'm going to. I just got to take it a day by day. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm sad. I wouldn't say I'm depressed. I just don't know how to I don't know how to process it. I have no idea how to process it. So I just ask y'all to be patient, with me. Am I throwing, myself at work? Potentially. Maybe I'm just throwing myself into work to kind of keep my mind off of things when I've made content over the course of the past couple of weeks, as some form of an escapism. It's been, actually good and healthy for me, if you will. But then once the camera's off, once the mic is off, once the lights are off, and I'm left with my thoughts. I'm in sometimes it's bad, sometimes not so much, but all I can do is try to move forward and take his memory with me. But I say all that to say I really just hope that I was able to go in and do him justice. And the reason why I want to make this in particular was, for one, to give you guys an opportunity to understand how much he meant to me. Secondly, the character of who he was, just with a small story of the Nintendo Switch. And then furthermore, I guess an opportunity for me to go and vent, because I've talked to, people in person, of course. But then you guys, I consider you guys as, a part of my friends and family as well, because we've been able to cultivate this relationship over years. And I know it sometimes folks can get a little parasocial. It's myself sitting in a room by myself with a camera, but I've been able to interact with a number of you guys. And furthermore, in the messages that you've sent me, the comments that you've sent me, a ton of you who are enduring loss over the years as well have talked about the processes that you too have had to go through in order to deal with and cope with the unfortunate loss of a loved one, whether it had been a husband, a wife, a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, a niece, a nephew, an aunt, an uncle, a friend, a significant other. I've read thousands of the messages, and it's aided me the last couple of weeks from losing my mind, and I thank you guys immensely for that. So I'll try my best to carry his legacy forward and keep his memory alive, and gonna get that 1 million subscribers for him. Gonna get that 1 million subscribers for him. Can only hope that I did him justice. It was a beautiful, beautiful service. And I will return to that gravesite with that golden plaque. And like I said in my last video, I'm gonna make you. Rest in peace. And another thing, the ending graphic that I now use, that was inspired by our favorite moment in One Piece when Ace was freed at Marineford and Luffy came to save him. Ace was his favorite character. The whole reason why I got that done was just like a small Easter egg for the two of us. Like, now I gotta finish One Piece without him. One Piece was his favorite anime. Literally obsessed hours upon hours on YouTube, sending each other videos from different channels with different conspiracies and theories on what the ending of One Piece could possibly be. Now, he was a manga reader. I wasn't. I was anime only. So anytime it got to something that could possibly be spoilers, I'd kind of cut the conversation over there. But now I got to finish One Piece without him. I'm sorry. I don't want to keep y'all here anymore. I'm just... The fuck, bro? You got no business being dead. He has no business being dead, bro.